All right, so the Boston Bruins take Game 1, beating the Blues 4-2 in Boston. And before the game started, some of the announcers reminded us of what Peter DeBoer said at the end of the Sharks-Blues series after San Jose was eliminated. He mentioned that Boston and St. Louis were two of the heaviest, hardest-hitting teams in the NHL, and that it's no surprise that both of them are now in the final. So, enter the first period. Now, both teams start with their fourth lines. And not only that, but they play them a lot during the whole game, really. And that's what these two teams, one of the many things that they have in common. Two really solid fourth liners who can hit as hard as the next one and even score on occasion. So in the first period, besides the first 5 minutes, it was all St. Louis. It was a dump and chase. They were hitting stuff. Braden Shen gets on the board. He gets his third of the playoffs, assisted by Schwartz and Bouwmeester. Now, this was sort of a scrum in front of the net, and Shen just had time on this. He had time. He was in a prime shooting space, and he just picked his corner, and it was in. It was 1-0 Blues. Now, the St. Louis took a lot of bad penalties, not just in the first, but throughout the entire game, but especially in the first. And they got lucky. They've got a real decent penalty kill. Boston's hadn't found their legs yet, and they will in the second period. But in that first, the Bruins couldn't even get out of their own zone, really. They just had such poor defensive zone exits. It was pretty uncharacteristic. And so the shots in that period were 8 apiece. And we get around to the second period. Don Cherry, I'm watching Sportsnet. He gets on the air and tells everyone how much he loves Pat Maroon, because Maroon's all about dump and chase, and that's old time hockey. Eh? In any case, second period starts, and I want to say about a minute in, Tarasenko scores. He gets his ninth of the season, the playoffs, assisted by Braden Shen. Now, this is a direct giveaway from David Pasternak, who thinks Chara is coming up behind him as he skates behind the net. But it's not. It's Shen who picks it up, finds Tarasenko all alone out front, and, of course, he makes no mistake. Rask doesn't have a chance. Neither did he on the goal in the first period either, but it's 2-0 Blues. And from about this moment on, really, Boston just slowly starts to take over. As I mentioned earlier, they start to get their legs underneath them, and they start to collapse on Rask too. So it's hard for St. Louis to get even that far past the blue line into the offensive zone. They get about to the top of the two circles, and that's it. Boston just strips them of the puck, takes it back, and goes the other way. And it's like St. Louis just abandons their dump and chase game, which Don Cherry, as I mentioned, loves so much. And not long afterwards, actually probably about a minute or so, Boston Bruins defenseman Connor Clifton scores, or I like to call Tony Clifton, gets his second of the playoffs, assisted by Curley and Nordstrom, who belong to, yes, that fourth line for Boston. Now, about 12:41 exactly, St. Louis Blues give Boston another power play. And this is the fourth power play they've given Boston already. And I think the Blues, or Boston, has only taken one so far, and that was in the first. And finally, the Bruins get it together, but it's really I believe Boston was changing up their power play at the moment. Charlie McAvoy was the only guy in the offensive zone, and he had two guys covering him, and he just put a wrist shot, and it just skipped under Binnington's glove, and it was a soft one. He knew he should have had it. And you felt that especially was a turning point, not just because it was a tying goal, but because it was a bad one. I mean, mind you, the Bruins outshot the Blues 18-3, 18-3 in the second period, just insane. So it could have been more if it wasn't for Binnington, especially in that second period. Boston could have easily scored a couple more goals. They were all over St. Louis. At one point, Edmundson, as I like to call him, Eddie, cross-checks backs towards the upper body somewhere. It's hard to tell. I need to take a look at the replay, but it looked like to me that he hit backs right around the top of the chest, and backs went down like a pile of rocks, like he got and grabbed his face like he had gotten hit in the head, and he drew a penalty. Edmundson was really mad about it. He hammered his stick down near backs, former teammates, and he went and pushed him as he was down. Like, what are you doing? And when he used the F word, faker, it's the other F word. And yeah, so there's tensions are starting to brew, especially with old teammates there. And as this game goes on, it starts to get a little dirtier and dirtier. But that penalty was questionable, I think. And then we go. Anything more about the second? No. And we go into the second intermission with the whole Sportsnet panel there. And they talked about Marchand had a few giveaways in the first, how Johansson was playing a really good game. He had a complete 3-period. He looked really good out there on the on the third line for Boston. He had a lot of good chances, a lot of good looks, a lot of individual great efforts. Did some great back checking. He looked really good in this game. He got one of the stars as well for it. Barbashev from the Blue was just busting chops out there. He was just crushing Bruin players to the point where Kelly Rudy's like, the Boston players have got to let each other know when he's on the ice and just be early aware. And I mean, really, the entire Blues team is like that. But Barbashev definitely one of the catalysts of that kind of play. Besides Blais, if you happen to know who Sammy Blais is. And the other bit of news they mentioned was how Tippett was going to be named Oilers coach tomorrow. A little spoiler news there. I'll probably have a video out on that. Now we get into the third period, and we're not even 5 minutes in, and it's just more of the same thing. It's just deer in headlights for St. Louis. Boston's now looking like that veteran team who's been there before, and St. Louis looks like they've got shaky legs. They get away from their game plan. There was a bit of a kerfuffle there between, completely behind the play with Krug and Krug. I've been saying that wrong for a while. Between Krug and Perron. And they were just wrestling, for the longest time behind the play. No penalty was called. Krug lost his helmet. Finally, they got untangled. Perron went one way, and then Perron went to the bench right afterwards. Krug went as soon as he saw Perron getting off the ice, because he looked like he wanted some payback, he just headed down the ice like a missile. And who was it? Robert Thomas, who just happened to have the puck and release it just as Krug just missiled him. Just what a check that was. Both of them flew to the ice. I'm sure there'll be a lot of nice GIFs out there on Twitter or pictures on Google about that one. And Krug, of course, not really, really known as the big heavy hitter. He's one of Boston's smaller guy, as I like to call him. He's the better version, the better Jake Gardner, who just doesn't hit, who hits more and doesn't give the puck away as much. Let's put it that way, yeah. And then, yeah, of course, I guess I should tell you about the scoring. Curley scores for Boston just over 5 minutes into the game. He gets his third of the postseason, assisted by Asari and Chara. That's the fourth line. That's the second goal, really, there from the fourth line, while the fourth line is on the ice again. That's 2 goals for them. So it's now 3-2. And yeah, that's St. Louis is done like dinner. There's not much fight from them. They empty their net, and Brad Marchand gets his scores an empty net goal. He gets his 8th of the season, and then they pull their goalie again, but nothing comes of it. And the shots in the third were 12-9 for Boston. They were even worse before St. Louis pulled their goalie. It was just St. Louis was just dreadful. I don't know what Coach Berube tells his bunch. Okay, so we had a great first period, 15 minutes. Where do you go from there? So let's talk about the team stats here. As you know, the shots on goal, the total was 38-20 for the Bruins. The Blues definitely got to work on that one. The hits were 33-32 for St. Louis. The face-offs were 31-26 for the Bruins. The Blues are really known for their face-off acumen throughout their first, I want to say their first 3, even 4 centermen, really. I don't know what happened tonight, but they were getting their butts kicked in that statistic. The penalty minutes were 10 for the Blues and 4 for Boston. The giveaways were 10 apiece for each team. Takeaways were 10 for Bruins, 8 for the Blues. The block shots were 12 for Boston, 7 for St. Louis. And, of course, Boston went 1 for 5 on the power play, and the Blues went 0 for 2. That's not bad, killing off 4 Bruin power plays. But you can't be tempting fate like that. You just cannot be taking that many penalties and giving the Bruins that much practice on the power play. Eventually, they'll take you. Don't poke the bear. Don't do it. What are we missing here? Let's talk about the goalies. Jordan Binnington got the loss in this one. He saved 34-37 with a .919 save percentage. Tuukka Rask saved 18 of 20. Can't believe he only got 20 shots with a .900 save percentage. The 3 stars of the game were number 3 was Connor Clifton, the Boston defenseman, with 1 goal. He was a +1. He had 13-13 of ice time. The second star, Marcus Johansson, who I mentioned in the second intermission. The panel thought he was having a terrific game, and he was, even though he didn't get on the point board at all. And then Sean Curley from the 4th line gets the first star, who had a goal and an assist. He was a +2 and had 14-21 of ice time for a 4th liner. They're really spreading out the love there in Boston. Quick insert here. I almost totally forgot to talk about what happened to Chara in the dying minutes of the game of the 3rd period. He got hit with what looked like a hard wrister right above where his glove ended and the forearm pad starts. And he started bleeding there almost just right away. He looked like he was in a lot of pain. Hopefully it's not a break or a fracture. So yeah, knock on wood for Bruins or their fans. Back to the video. I would love to hear your thoughts and opinions on this game. Not just this game, but how I'm doing this video. If you happen to have seen some of my other videos, usually I put up a board and do some cutaways with some stats. I thought I'd try something different. Let me know what you think of that. If you have an extra second, let me know in the comment section down below. Hit like if you like this video. Smash that subscribe button if you haven't already. And hey, if you happen to have any Hockey Geek friends, please don't feel shy about sharing. Thanks again, and I'll see you soon.